back, ladies and gentlemen, to the She Knows Pro Football podcast. Once again, I'm Alice, aka the NFL Girl, and once again, I got my good friend Dominick here with me. Dominick, how you doing today?
Alice not doing too bad. Yet we're through the regular season. We're now into the super wild card weekend. Yeah, we just had, I wouldn't call it a Black Monday. We had a kind of a gray Monday. We only had a couple coaches lose their jobs, but we'll see what happens after this weekend's games.
Man, I don't think I've ever seen Black Monday be as quiet as this particular one was. We only saw 2 head coaches lose their job, but again, that's subject to change in the next couple weeks, in particular as we move through the playoffs. You guys, we are through the regular season. We are here at Super Wild Card Weekend. Call for the fact that we have expanded the playoffs, and I'm excited to get started with this week. Some teams backed their way into the playoffs. Some teams made their way into the playoffs. We get to see a little bit mix of both of that this particular week, starting with our Saturday matchup. We got the 9-8 Seattle Seahawks headed to San Francisco to face the 13-4 49ers. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, I don't know if Seattle went back asswards into this playoffs, but they're going to leave these playoffs ass backwards because San Francisco is just on a roll right now. They have Deebo Samuel back for this game. Brock Purdy's 6-0 as a quarterback, 5-0 as a starter right now. He's had at least 2 touchdowns in every one of his starts so far. The only person to do that for 7 starts as a rookie is Justin Herbert, so he's going for that record this week. Christian McCaffrey absolutely torches the Seattle Seahawks. He averages over 180 rushing yards against them in his career. I think he can get 200 yards in this game if he wants to, if they let him, between rushing and receiving. I think he's going to have multiple touchdowns in this game. I just think that Seattle's going to run and pass all over the Seahawks defense that really should not be in the playoffs. We both thought they'd be one of the worst teams in the league coming into this year. They surprisingly made it into the playoffs. I think they're going to easily exit the playoffs as well.
Seahawks basically fell ass backwards into the playoffs when the Lions eliminated the Packers. I do not think this team should be in there. They finished with a 9-8 record. And again, I'm not saying that Geno Smith had a terrible season. Geno Smith is likely a candidate for comeback player of the year. If you want to have somebody in that, making a comeback just means that they had a hell of a season considering where they played previously. He had a phenomenal year. Team looked good. He has a great matchup with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and I love what I saw out of Kenneth Walker. But you guys, the 49ers are on a tear right now. This is a fabulous team. We thought that when Jimmy G went down, when Trey Lance went down, that this team was going to fold, and they did not. They rallied behind Brock Purdy, and they looked phenomenal. The addition of Christian McCaffrey was a tremendous decision on their part. It was a gamble because we didn't know what we were going to get, seeing what we have been seeing the last few years with CMC when he played in Carolina. But the addition of him has been so incredible, and it's made all the other players around him, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and everyone else, step up. I'm so excited to see this team in the playoffs. I think that they can make a bit of a run. I do not expect this to be that close of a game, especially the way the 49ers defense plays. So I'm definitely taking the 49ers in this game. Next up, we got the 10-7 Los Angeles Chargers headed to Jacksonville to face the 9-8 Jaguars. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, let's talk about teams on a tear. Jacksonville just, lit up the AFC and the league right in the past couple weeks getting into here. They didn't look great against Tennessee, but they still won the game, and that's all they had to do against a Tennessee team that was basically left for dead. They started out 7-3, ended up 8-9. They were just terrible at the end of the year. Jacksonville was exactly the opposite. They won the division. Tennessee lost the division, but Jacksonville had to be there to take advantage of it, and they were absolutely able to do that. I don't know what Los Angeles was doing last week. Not only did they lose the game against Denver, which is fine because they didn't really need to play anybody anyway, but they played people anyway, had them in until the middle of the fourth quarter, and they still lost the game. That was the worst part. Plus, they got Mike Williams injured, who he may now miss this game with a back contusion. We'll see what happens. The Chargers are 28th in the league in rush defense. They're awful against the rush. They give up 145 yards a game. Jacksonville gets 124 yards a game in the run game. I think that Travis Etienne is going to have a very, very good game here. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a good game as well, throwing the ball to Zay Jones, also Agnew, Kirk, and whoever else he wants, Jones, if he wants to throw it to him as well. They're going to run, and they're going to do the same thing here. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't see Jacksonville win this game by 20, 21 points, but I do think they're going to win this game by at least a touchdown. And this is one of the coaches for Los Angeles who may not be there. Call it Black Monday Part 2.
For sure. You guys, Brandon Staley's decision to start all his starters through the entire game was perplexing as hell. Again, this team had nowhere to go in the standings. They were locked into the number 5 seed, regardless if they played all their starters and won or rested all their starters and lost. It was still going to be the number 5 seed. So it was asinine and ridiculous. And now we run the risk of Mike Williams now not being able to play because of this back contusion. Joey Bosa will be back for this game. I know that's going to help with their defense, but just the way this team has been playing has been decent. Last week, they looked a little lost, but going against the Jaguars, listen, I know that the Chargers have the better record, but right now, the way the Jaguars are playing is just so tremendous to see, and they're playing at home. Trevor Lawrence has got this really good connection now with his receiver, Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, and finally, Travis Etienne picked it up in the second half of the season. Good seeing what this kid could do finally. I was glad to see him healthy this year and really start to get on track. I think the addition of Doug Peterson was what that team needed all along. Just a great head coach who can coach them in the way that they needed to be in order for them to move forward. I think the exact opposite of when it comes to Brandon Staley. He made piss poor decisions, especially in that last particular game. I hope it's going to be a close game. I expect it to be an interesting game, but at the end of the day, with the Jaguars playing at home and playing like they've been doing down the stretch, I got to give this game to the Jaguars. Moving on to Sunday, we got the 9-8 Miami Dolphins headed to Buffalo to face the 13-3 Bills. Dominick, who you got?
There's always one game, Alice, that you don't want to talk about. And this, to me, is that game. I just think with Miami playing Skylar Thompson in this game, with Tua being out, with Teddy Bridgewater likely being out, I don't think they're going to be able to do much against this Buffalo team. Buffalo, especially now, they were already on a mission now with Damar Hamlin and his situation, which, thank God, he's actually out of the hospital now. He got released today. He's getting better, but he's going to be on the sideline. And you think they're going to lose this game with him on the sideline? I don't. I think that if there's one blowout this week, this could be the biggest blowout of the week, and I will make a bold prediction here and say that Miami gets shut out in this game. I don't think they're going to score, and I can see this game being 31-0 Buffalo at the end of it.
Miami down the stretch towards the end of the season went through 5-6 losses in a row. And that really is because Tua wasn't there and Tua came back and Tua got hurt. And then they had Teddy Bridgewater and Teddy Bridgewater got hurt. And now we're down to Skylar Thompson. And I'm not saying that there isn't a good future in Miami for Skylar Thompson, but he doesn't have the same type of chemistry that Tua does with Tyreek Hill and with Jalen Waddle. Meanwhile, on top of that, this team it's kind of a little bit dysfunctional right now. I think that there are things that they need to get together. The fact that they haven't been playing Mike Gesicki as much as they have in previous years really baffled the hell out of me because he is a hell of a tight end. So I'm kind of disappointed in how they play him this season. Bills, meanwhile, listen, this team is playing for something. And sadly, we all had to witness it on live television, but they have someone and something that they are playing for, and that's for Damar Hamlin. I think that this team is going to play at a next level throughout these playoffs, and I expect them to not get knocked out right here in the first round, not against this Dolphins team. You out your rabbit ass mind if you really think that Skylar Thompson is going to be the quarterback that's going to knock them out the playoffs. Josh Allen has a great chemistry with Gabe Davis, a phenomenal chemistry with Stephon Diggs. The running game has looked good in the second half of the season. They have a stout defense. I think they're going to just run all over the damn Dolphins. Definitely giving this game to the Bills here. Next up, we got the 9-7-1 New York Giants headed to Minnesota to face the 13-4 Vikings. Dominick, who you got?
Yeah, Minnesota, for me, plays with their food a little bit too much. They're 11-0 this year in one-score games. That's the reason that they ended up getting into the playoffs here as the number 3 seed, winning the division. Sometimes luck has to run out, and I do think it's going to run out here. One of those one-score games was that 27-24 victory on Christmas Eve against the Giants, where they won the game on a Craig Joseph 61-yard field goal. Almost made up for that 27-yard mistake that Blair Walsh made in the playoffs a couple years ago, but whatever. But I just think that this team is playing over its head right now. It's not as good as we think they are. Luckily, this game isn't in prime time, or we could say prime time Kirk Cousins, but this pass defense is absolutely terrible. They're 31st in the league in pass defense. I think Danny Dimes is going to dime all over them in this game, even though he has a mishmash of wide receivers out there. He doesn't have any wide receiver ones. Kenny Galladay has first touchdown as a Giant last week against the Eagles. He could get another 1 or 2 in this game. I do like what their offense is going to do. Saquon Barkley, you're talking about Geno Smith being the comeback player of the year. My pick this year is going to be Saquon Barkley. He's run the ball 295 times this this year already. That's 4th in the league. He also was 4th in the league with 1,312 rush yards. He's having an amazing year after missing basically the past 2 years with different injuries. I just think the Giants are the better team here. They sat everybody last week. They're rested, and I think they're going to be able to go into Minnesota. And even though it's going to be close because both these teams love playing close games, I'm going to call for the upset here and Giants are going to win the game.
Listen, Giants and Danny Dimes have looked tremendous this year. And that's surprising simply because Danny Dimes hasn't had a true WR1 for weeks. Sterling Shepard went down early in the season, and he's played with pretty much everybody. And Kenny Golladay, up until last week, wasn't doing a damn thing. So, it's been a hodgepodge of receivers there, and they've leaned very heavily on their running game with Saquon Barkley, which, thank God, Saquon Barkley has stayed healthy all season and put up a tremendous season this year in yards and touchdowns. So good to see him back and see what he's capable of doing. Meanwhile, Minnesota, here's my thing with Minnesota. Minnesota has a great record. Minnesota looks good on paper, okay? We can all agree that Kirk Cousins had a good season because he's got great receivers there in Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. He has a great running game in Dalvin Cook. However, when it comes to playing in the playoffs, I always have question marks when it comes to the Vikings, in particular, now that they have Kirk Cousins there as the QB1. I'm always going to be a little bit leery about picking them simply because they kind of wither and fold when we get into the playoff situation. Giants want to prove that they deserve to be in these playoffs. However, they are playing in Minnesota. Do I think that Minnesota can come up with just enough to get past the Giants with them not having a true WR1 there? I think they can. So in this case, I know I'm leaning towards who the odds-on favorite is anyway, but I just think they have a slightly better defense. I think that as far as going against those WR1s, I think that Giants not having a true WR1 is going to be detrimental here in a playoff situation. So in this case, I am going to lean and go ahead and pick the Vikings in this game. Next up, we got the 10-7 Baltimore Ravens headed to Cincinnati to face the 12-4 Bengals. Dominick, who you got?
So we saw this game last week, and last week was supposed to be the last week without Lamar Jackson. Looks like he's going to be sitting out this week again. J.K. Dobbins didn't play last week, but that was basically scheduled. They said it was so he could rest and relax and get ready for this game. It's not going to do him much good. Baltimore lost last week 27-16 against this Cincinnati team. Cincinnati did absolutely nothing last week. They were very vanilla as well because they knew they were going to match up against this week. So I don't think that they showed anything last week either. I think this is going to be a totally different game. I do think that the line of 6.5 is a little bit too much, especially if somehow Lamar does come back. I don't think he's going to, though. But I do think it's probably going to be a touchdown game. But I do think that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be able to pull out the victory.
My only question with the Ravens has got to do with their quarterback situation. We have Lamar Jackson is likely going to miss this game. We don't know for sure that Tyler Huntley is going to be able to make it back for this game. And they may have to lean on Anthony Brown again in this game. They will likely have J.K. Dobbins back for this game, which will help on the ground game. But is that going to be enough considering they're going against the Bengals right now? Now, when it comes to the Bengals are going to be without the right side of their offensive line. So that's going to be a problem when it comes to Joe Burrow going against the Ravens defense. That's going to be an issue. That's why I expect this game to be a little bit closer because they're going to have to be more careful with his blind side. That being said, listen, without knowing who our QB1 is going to be going into this game, it would be hard for me to pick the Ravens. I know for sure that Joe Burrow has a tremendous matchup with Jamar Chase, with Tyler Boyd, with T. Higgins, and they got a great running game in Joe Mixon that they've been solid all season long. These are division rivals that do not like each other, and they're going to want to beat each other's ass. I think at the end of the day, playing in Cincinnati, with the question marks I have for Baltimore, I got to take the Bengals here. And last up, we got our Monday matchup. We got the 12-5 Dallas Cowboys headed to Tampa to face the 8-9 Buccaneers. Dominick, who you got?
Tom Brady has never lost against Dallas. He's 7-0 in his career. I don't think he's going to lose this game. He didn't really play last week other than to get a couple of passing records for himself for season totals and everything. But the week before that, he had 420 yards and 4 touchdowns in the game that they really needed against the Carolina Panthers. With Mike Evans there, had over 200 yards. They finally had the connection that they've been missing for some reason all year. Chris Godwin's back for this game as well. I think playoff Lenny's going to become playoff Lenny again. I just really like what Tampa Bay is going to be doing here. Dallas is 1-4 on natural grass this year. Their defense is much slower on grass than it is on turf. They're just a team built for turf. The only game that they won on natural grass was against Tennessee when Tennessee was sitting everybody because they didn't need the game anyway. So I don't think this is going to be a good game for Dallas. They are the favorite, but I don't think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to lose this game pretty badly, and this could be another coach in Dallas and Mike McCarthy that I could see ending up being let go on the second part of Black Monday.
Listen, every year it's going to be Cowboys year, at least when it comes to Cowboys fan. This is going to be the year they get back to the Super Bowl. This is going to be the year that they make a run through the playoffs. I hear it every year. I'm so tired of hearing that. Listen, the Cowboys have major issues that they need to overcome. One of them being that this season, Dak Prescott has had an unprecedented season as far as throwing interceptions, and that has cost them games. In particular, several key games during the season, in particular down the stretch. It was games that he cost them simply for throwing interceptions at the end of games. Can they overcome that now here in the playoffs against Tampa Bay of all teams, going against Tom Brady? Think about that for a minute. That's a big ask of them. And don't get me wrong, I like CeeDee Lamb and I like Dak Prescott. I think that the running game, that two-headed monster of Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott has been tremendous this year. But here in the playoffs is where the Cowboys always get exposed for having massive issues. Buccaneers, I know that Tom Brady turns into a whole other animal in the playoffs every single year. It doesn't matter who the hell they face. He always becomes another level QB because for him, the season starts over. Then every team is 0-0 as far as he's concerned. And he's got another opportunity to take this team all the way to the Super Bowl as far as he's concerned. They're 8-9. They're below 500. This isn't going to be a blowout game. This is going to be a very close game. It's going to be a dogfight. But at the end of the day, I just prefer Tampa Bay because I know what Tom Brady can do. And I know the weapons that he has in Leonard Fournette, in Mike Evans, in Chris Godwin. And I know those weapons, to me, match up better in the playoff situation. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay here. I know this is a surprise, but that's who my pick is in that game. Well, you guys, that's all the time that we have for today. Want to thank everybody again for listening. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at TheNFLGirl320. Dominick, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EnvisionFF.
You can read more of my thoughts on SheKnowsProFootball.com. Dominick, where can they read your work?
You can read my work at PhiladelphiaEagles.com, Sportsbook Wire by USA Today, and at The Athletic.
That's all the time we have, you guys. See you back here next week.